But I don't think anybody would dispute that the cruise ship crew member is one of the most vital parts of the whole cruise operation. If you didn't have crew members, there really would be no cruising. And well, today I've got 3 interesting looks at the life of a crew member. We got a crew member sentenced for doing bad stuff. We got a Carnival cruise passenger upset about their interaction or lack of interaction with a crew member. And then there's a whole list of things that well-meaning people seem to do that really bothers crew members. Let's take a look at that cruise life, crew member life on today's episode. Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome to Loca. I am your host Tony, here with the latest cruise news and views. It's for your face on a Thursday the 29th of August, 2024. And there was a high profile case that happened a few months ago, I think about 6 months ago, and there has been some resolution. This is former Royal Caribbean crew member Arvin Mirasol. Back in February, a guest on a Royal Caribbean cruise ship found a video camera that Mirasol had hidden, and he was capturing images of underage passengers with the video camera. Of course, he was fired from Royal Caribbean, turned over to the authorities, incarcerated. He's pled guilty to the charges brought against him, and now he's been sentenced to 30 years in prison. It's pretty wild. I just finished this book by Malcolm Gladwell called Talking to Strangers, and there were a lot of interesting nuggets in that book, but one of the nuggets was that essentially the way that humans have come to be is that for the most part, we default to truth. It's a hard thing for us to imagine that people do bad things. We know that people do bad things, but it's not most of the people that do bad things. And so in many situations, we just default to the truth, that people are being truthful, that strangers are being truthful. But situations like this really kind of remind you that when you go onto a cruise ship, you're going to be interacting with thousands of people. And statistically, when you get thousands of people together, not everybody is going to be a good person or a truthful person. And so something as simple as checking places for a video camera, maybe not a bad thing to do when you're on a cruise ship. That's certainly what got this gentleman caught. Fortunately, that he couldn't do this anymore. But it's a weird scenario. And fortunately, at least this person who were doing these things, these illegal things, won't be able to do it anymore. Cruise news story number 2, an interesting complaint being levied at Carnival Cruise Line by a disgruntled Carnival cruise passenger. And it all comes down to, she didn't get to interact with the crew member in a way that she wanted to. Here's the story. This message went to Carnival brand ambassador John Heald. The person writes, I have a complaint about the lack of compassion from the captain or whoever was on the blank ship. The first night I met someone, a bartender at the Alchemy, who made me and my sister-in-law laugh so much and was really attentive. I had read that it is possible to invite a crew person to dinner at the steak restaurant, so we asked. He had to clear it with his boss, the manager and captain, but blank told me that he was denied the request. Unbelievable that this happened. I was advised to bring this complaint to you, John Heald. I was wrong in thinking the Carnival cared about their workers. This proves that they do not. Why was this not allowed? I love how every time somebody complains about something, they have to put inflammatory language in there. Like your argument immediately drops a couple notches. Like I see it all the time. Like in the YouTube comments, people will be like, I disagree with you on this, you fatty, or you dummy, or are you stupid? That kind of stuff. Like I'm like almost considering what they're saying until it's wrapped in this inflammatory stuff. So I don't know. That's just a basic lesson for life. If you really want to communicate with people, it's better if you just make your point and not be derisive. But not everybody can do that. So the point that these folks are making is they had a great time with an Alchemy bartender, wanted to take him out to dinner. They press into the person and say, hey, we'd love to take you out to dinner. The guy says, well, I got to ask my boss. Next day I asked my boss and he said no. And now the people are mad at the whole Carnival organization. There are so many weird things wrapped up in that. I don't know why. I really don't know why people that don't know you want you to go spend 2 hours. Do you know how hard it is to spend 2 hours with strangers? I mean, maybe some people can do it, but some people can't. But certainly, could you imagine like a crew member who has like a regular nighttime job? They're at the Alchemy bar every night slanging drinks. And if you know anything about the crew member culture, they have to work a lot, 7 days a week. And so it's not like, oh, hey, this guest wants me to take off a few hours to go have dinner. What are they going to say? Of course, they're not going to say, hey, no, I don't want you to take me out to dinner, because then you risk, bruising somebody's ego. Like, oh, I can't believe you don't want to go out to dinner with me, blah, blah, blah. So reasonably, whether it's, I got to ask my boss, the boss says no, it should end at that. But no, these people press on. Now Carnival doesn't care about their workers. I don't get it. Who's out of line here? Do you? I know people that have said they've eaten with crew members before. I think it does happen, but it's got to be the most uncomfortable situation. Maybe there's people that love it. Maybe there's crew members that love it. They can get out of work, that kind of thing. But just imagine like somebody that you barely know just comes up and says, hey, I want to spend the next 2 hours with you. Can you please entertain me? Or can you, maybe I'm way off base on this one. But essentially in the response, John Hield says, hey, look, we can't just give everybody time off. He goes on to say maybe this crew member doesn't want to spend 2 hours with you, but how's he supposed to say that without hurting your feelings? And, at the same time, now he kind of gets on the chip because they say they don't care about employees, right? So this person, spoiled their whole conversation by like I said, the inflammatory language. What do you think? All right, continuing on with that vibe, let's look at this article that was posted over on Reader's Digest. 11 polite habits cruise workers actually dislike and what to do instead. This is an interesting thing because, I think the cruiser feels like, well, we set the rules or whatever. And sometimes you can tell in some of these postings that people are oblivious to the feelings of the person that's working on the cruise ship. Here we go. Here's their list. Raving about your special request dinner. This is a big one. So cruise lines are helpful when it comes to accommodating special food requests. And sometimes people get even like a special meal made by the chef, that kind of thing. The thing that you don't want to do is you don't want to blab that all over the place, because that creates a lot of challenges for the cruise line. Because if you get a special dinner and you start blabbing about it, then everybody else wants a special dinner. It could be troublesome. So here's the thing. Like most things in life, if something really great happens to you that may seem obnoxious to other people if you brag about it, just enjoy the fact that something nice happened to you and don't necessarily rub it in other people's face, which this is kind of one of those deals. Here we go. Sharing positive feedback about entertainment to the cruise director or guest services. Now, on the surface, you would think that this would be a good thing, but you got to remember there's a hierarchy to these things. And a lot of times the entertainment doesn't necessarily even report to the people that you could be giving the compliment to. As the article points out, the thing that you really want to do if you want to give any kind of praise to any crew member that's meaningful is that you want to include that praise on your guest survey at the end of your cruise. Those guest surveys are set up in a way so that the appropriate person gets the praise or the concern that you may have on those surveys. And so, it's almost like a wasted effort to go tell somebody that's not somebody's boss that they're doing a good job. Cruise ships are too big and too vast to think that if you tell the cruise director that somebody in housekeeping is doing a great job, that message is going to get back to the right place. It might, but you're better served to put that on the survey. This one's interesting. Helping to bring in the boat after an excursion or expedition. Now, this is primarily going to be on smaller cruise ships. They're talking about like a Zodiac boat. I think this is probably true for any equipment when it comes to the cruise ship. They have procedures. They have things in place. Nobody's going to need help, resecuring the lifeboat after the lifeboat drill. Certainly nobody wants help pulling the Zodiac on. They might, but they don't want guest help. If they need help, they'll get help from other crew members. So yeah, this is you don't want to get in the middle of that. All right, how about this one? Offering to buy an entertainer a drink during the show. It seems like this is something that people would like, and I feel like I've seen people do this before, but it does become a challenge because not every entertainer is allowed to drink during their work hours. These people are on the clock. And a lot of times there's HR rules in place that says you cannot imbibe in alcohol while you are working. And so it becomes a big circle. Of course, nobody's going to be rude to you if you buy them a drink, but they may not drink it, which is just a waste of your money. And drinks are more expensive for the guests than they are for crew members. Crew members can get drinks at a significant discount. And so you might be doing something when you're buying somebody a drink that they can't even partake in. So yeah, that's something that you may not want to do. I tell you one thing though, that most entertainers and people public facing like that, people will take a tip and tip them directly with cash. Entertainers, piano bar, pub singers, even if you're just the band that you're appreciating, a lot of times cash goes a long way. So yeah, cash before drinks. This one certainly seems obvious. Asking personal questions to be friendly. There's a weird thing when it comes to cruising, especially North American cruising. It does seem like the level of service on a lot of the major cruise lines is personal, and personal is good. A lot of people like personal service, but there's a fine line there. The crew members want to be super friendly. They want to give great service. They want you to feel good about your cruise vacation, but not necessarily in a way where everybody's best friends. And I think a lot of times people want to be best friends. I've run into people that, I hang out with this crew member. I talk to this crew member very familiarly. We talk to each other on Facebook. And, I'm assuming that that's fine. And I'm assuming there's going to be some crew members that want that level of interaction. But I think it would be wrong to make the assumption to say that every crew member wants that level of interaction. The Reader's Digest article says in the Do This Instead section, put yourself in their situation, and would you want just this crew member that you just met to start asking super personal questions about you? That's probably a good thing to think about. This next one's a big one, and there's been a lot of conversation about that. Going to your stateroom as soon as you board the ship. Most of the time you can't do that because you've got people in your stateroom still trying to get it ready. And that really hinders the get it ready process. If somebody's in there trying to vacuum or trying to make up the bed or clean the bathroom and you're barging in with your luggage, some places will let you drop off your luggage as soon as you get on the cruise ship, but you definitely want to know if you can do that or not, because this can become a big problem on turnaround day. It's an interesting thing. Sometimes people love to get on the cruise ship super early and, they want to get rid of their bags, but the way I approach, cruise day is a lot of times I'll go later in the afternoon. I try to get there around the time that the cabin's open so that I can go right into that cabin and I'm not in anybody's way. But yeah, you got to be careful when it comes to these things because it will send somebody off if they're trying to get something done and you're barging into the stateroom that's not ready. This next one's a little bit of a pet peeve of mine. I used to wait tables in a fine dining restaurant, and it would always bother me when people started pre-bussing the table, stacking up the plates, thinking that they were being helpful. And a lot of times they would stack plates in a way that wasn't helpful. We had techniques where we could carry a lot of plates and we could clean off a table pretty easy. And that pretty much required the plates just being where they were at so that we could organize the dishes in our hands in the way we wanted and the silverware. And the problem, if people start pre-stacking their plates and you try to manage that pre-stacked plate, I've seen more than one instance of silverware flying off and somebody getting dirty because a sauce comes off a plate or something like that. I think it's a universal thing for the most part for people who wait tables. Don't pre-bus your table. We'll take care of it. Leave stuff where it's at. This next one's pretty interesting, and this one's something to think about. Tipping your server on the restaurant check. So what immediately comes to mind for me is a lot of times when you go into a specialty dining restaurant, there is a gratuity that's added on to that price anyways, but they'll also give you a receipt that has an additional gratuity line. And I tend to be the person that anytime there's an additional gratuity line, I give the additional gratuity. It's, I like giving extra. But this tip right here says that maybe giving extra on the extra gratuity line is not the way to do it. It's probably a good rule of thumb for everything on a cruise ship that if you want people to have money, it's good to give them money directly. Now, the challenge is cruising is a cashless system. So I'm not carrying around $10 bills or $20 bills to give an extra 20 to a server, even though I may want to. So I'm just going to fill out the piece of paper. This is a troublesome one for me. It's got me thinking like maybe I should have some paper cash on me just to hand out to people that I think do a good job. But I've heard this from more than one spot, this article, and actually from crew members, that if you want to ensure that the crew member gets exactly what you want them to get, the best way to ensure that is just to give it to them directly. It goes back to that whole tipping conversation, which is a deep conversation on cruising. There's some more here. Complimenting an entertainer's looks or appearance. They say they don't like that. Telling the piano player how much you like the song while the song's going on. But here's the big one. We'll rest on this one. Not letting the crew member know when there is a problem. I see this a lot on cruise ships. I run into people that complain and they're upset about something. And then when you press them and say, well, did you tell the person, did you tell your cabin steward you're not happy with it? Did you go to guest services? Have you escalated it to a manager? And they're like, no, I'm just angry. And this is the biggest hurdle for crew members, especially if there's a problem at the beginning of a cruise. You can set yourself up to be upset all week by not saying something. The cruise line wants you to have the best cruise possible, and everybody in that whole system is trained to understand when you're dissatisfied and then try to rectify it. And if you don't speak up, none of those things will happen. This is such an important thing for cruisers here. If you're on your cruise and you're upset about anything, immediately start working through the chain of people that can help you out. I would say try to do it with some grace and some decorum. Don't be a jerk because, everybody in this whole loop are human beings. And what I know about humans, no matter how well you're trained to, satisfy the unsatisfied, as soon as you become a jerk, that adds a level of friction in there that kind of gums up the process. So if you're unhappy, I think you can express that unhappiness without being jerky, but definitely get in that process so that you get some sort of satisfaction and you're not upset for the rest of your cruise talking about it. Like I said, the crew members, they're the lifeblood of that cruising operation. They're very vital to all of our cruise vacations. Treat them with some love and respect. What do you think about this list? Did any of those things seem way off base, or are they right on base? Leave a comment below. If you'd like to stay up to date with everything going on in cruising, please consider subscribing. If you like this video, hit the like button. This is Tony for La Lido Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido. Bye. Cruise.